Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers, a great show on tap for today. Scott Craigie co-hosting. Who's on the rundown?
Well, we've got two state senators, Valerie Weiner and Bob Beers, talking about the budget. It's going to be a hot one.
And on our Power Pundit panel today, Bob Beers joins us for that, along with Paul Enos and Robert Compan. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
Here at the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, water resources come from fresh, clean groundwater, approved by state permits. The water is pumped from wells to million-gallon storage tanks and then distributed to TRI companies. Another amenity is our investment in a state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant. This disposal system converts waste to clean water for industrial applications. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevada.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
Coverage of Nevada Newsmakers from the state legislature in Carson City is brought to you by the Nevada Beer Wholesalers Association. As an employer, did you know you can be held liable for negligent hiring? A background screening by Employer Links can uncover criminal records, like alcohol and drug convictions. It can verify the applicant's education, driving records, and professional licenses. Employer Links can check civil records, registered sex offender records, and Social Security fraud. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
I tell you, John, this industry has really changed.
Tell me about it.
You seemed to do pretty well last year. What's your secret?
No secrets. Although I'll tell you something. The smartest thing I did was sign up with Pro Group Management.
Really? Yeah, they do workers' comp, right?
Yeah, their services are great. And get this, they saved me 30%. I've heard they saved others 50%.
That works for me.
Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
This is a special edition of Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
Back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined by Bob Beers, state senator, and he's a Republican in Clark District number 6. You have a little furry thing that you brought along. You want to explain this?
Constituent came by yesterday furry thing question
and gave this to me. It's a little eagle. Can you hear it?
And what's the sound?
I think it's the sound of an eagle getting choked by a 55% increase in state spending in 4 years.
That's quite astonishing as a figure.
So you still haven't quite finished the budget yet. We don't know what the rebate system is going to be, and I believe that we still haven't gotten...
There's a few loose ends. We've got 6 days left. The mechanism of the budget is one of the biggest loose ends out there. The amount of the budget is probably a little bit in play, and I don't know, the governor may have to get his veto pen out because there's certainly a number of folks here who want to reduce the amount of the refund and spend some more.
Well, and Millennium Scholarships, the funding for that is yet undecided. That's one of his pet projects. That's his legacy.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement, and it's a tough thing. It's a neat program, but it was started 6 years ago under the promise that it would never cost Nevada taxpayers a penny. It currently spends about $30 to $33 million a year. The income from the tobacco fund is about $17 million a year. So that's a big hole, and we're essentially filling it up with Nevada taxpayers' money.
Well, the Las Vegas Review-Journal in their editorial today said that the panel endorsed a one-time $35 million infusion of cash for the scholarships. If you believe this is a one-time shot, we've got beachfront property in Gabs for you. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate statement. The current projection with the $35 million one-shot and the addition of about $8 million a year in general fund monies, I guess we're technically calling it unclaimed property funds, so no one will notice, is going to last through 2010.
And then it's done.
And then it's down to zero again. We'll have to figure out something else. Now, the alternative, which is something that we did take some steps toward in the subcommittee on the Millennium Scholarship System, was to essentially reduce the number of students who can get it and maintain a higher standard of conduct to keep it. You can do things like change the grade point average requirements. You can do things like increase the length of time a student must be in Nevada before they can get it. You can do things like limit the number of credits per semester or put a cap on the amount per year. And those are all things that we're looking at, and I think we'll probably make a presentation to the full Finance Committee today or tomorrow on that.
Okay, will the governor go for raising the grade point average to 3?
I don't know at what line the governor will veto what we pass or not. He has made it clear that he would prefer that we leave it as broad as possible and go through it as quickly as possible and then make some other decision down the road in a couple of years. But many of the legislators, on the other hand, are planning to be here 5 years from now and 10 years from now, and may take a little bit of a longer vision.
So just step back from individual pieces that we ask about and look at the entire budget. And I know that you gave a presentation a few weeks ago, I guess now, on areas that you'd like to see the state go in the future and how it would deal with the budget issues. Just generally, categorically, where would you make major changes? You mentioned with your Eagle that $55 million is way too much of 55% is too much. Mm-hmm. Where would you make the cuts to bring it down to something more reasonable?
Well, if it were solely up to me, yes. We would reduce the utilization of the Millennium Scholarship to the funding we have available, for example. We would stop expanding our Medicaid program into new optional groups. We would stop adding new optional services to our Medicaid. Might even cut some of them back down to the levels that our surrounding states have set them at. Probably look at reductions in we added 140 caseworkers in the welfare department 2 years ago, and in anticipation of a steep increase in caseload, the caseload actually went down. Well, we kept the 140 workers this time. That doesn't make any sense to me.
If we had had a taxpayer's Bill of Rights in place, what would have been the percentage increase that would have been allowed by comparison with what we have actually seen?
12. We're going to increase taxing and spending, including one-shots, well, basically this budget cycle coming up, about 24%. And population growth and inflation is going to equal 12.
But a significant amount of that is driven by increases in the number of students, both at the university and community college system and at K-12. I mean, you either have to fund those people that are coming to school or not fund them. It's a per student ratio. There are other programs, but obviously population drives a lot of that increase.
And that's accounted for in the Tabor formula. Population increase is going to be about 7%. Inflation is going to be about 5%. And absolutely we need to accommodate the increase in population and the resultant increases in population for school kids and senior citizens and university students.
The governor was on the program yesterday and talking about recruiting others to follow him in the governor's chair from the Republican side that were not Jim Gibbons. He didn't mention your name.
He has not recruited me. I've heard a number of people have suggested I look at it. He's not one.
Are you looking
Interestingly
at it?
enough.
Are you looking at it?
I'm looking at Going Home Tuesday.
That may be the most honest answer that's been said on this show in the last 3 months.
I'm looking at Going Home Tuesday, and then I'm going to try to recover from this rather, this is always a traumatic, I guess all legislative sessions are somewhat traumatic, but get over it, think about it, talk to some people, talk to some friends and supporters, and see what they think. And, I am pretty deeply committed to seeing an end to the hyper-growth of government in Nevada. It's happening at both the state and the local government levels. I believe passionately that when government expands, the economy shrinks. We're very fortunate to live next to California, so it masks a lot of our symptoms because they're so bad, and so many of their residents, their productive residents, are fleeing the state and coming here.
That sounds like you have differences with Gibbons. Where are those differences, you and him?
Quickly.
He has more hair than I do. No, Scott?
We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
For a videotape copy of any Nevada Newsmakers program, call 775-857-2244. The tapes are $20 each, including shipping.
My family started this business 27 years ago.
We work hard to serve our customers and our community.
But it's getting harder and harder to keep the doors open.
For example, our workers' comp is going through the roof. Isn't anyone on my side anymore?
The Retail Association of Nevada is. If you're a small business owner, we can cut your workers' comp by up to 50%, lobby for your interests, and keep you informed. Put us to work today.
Ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
Back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined by State Senator Valerie Weiner. Pleasure to have you here.
Wonderful.
As always,
back.
welcome being back.
Yeah.
And she's a State Senator from Clark County, District 3. I wanted to ask you about, a lot of talk about prescription drugs in this session, but you've gone after a different area of this, somewhat of a gray market. Would you explain about this?
And you've described it well, the gray market. And when people understand what the bill does, they go, wow, we didn't know, thank you. This deals with counterfeit drugs. And it's become kind of a talking point in other states. Not many. We want to get ahead of it in Nevada. And this deals with the wholesale piece of that, and that's where the hanky-panky occurs. So it was a very difficult bill to move through. There were a lot of parties, a lot of interests, a lot of intricate language, and we did get it through our House. We've concurred with what happened in the Assembly. I'm waiting for the governor's signature to get ahead.
Can I ask you to explain a little bit, if I understand this correctly, this is where the drugs are sold by the manufacturers to wholesale pharmacies, and also hospitals who have excess drugs put that back into that market as well. Is that not correct?
Well, there is a provision for recapturing drugs where they can take them back. The key point was, even according to some of the wholesalers, that when you have unlimited resale in the origin, from the manufacturer to a wholesaler and on and on and on, somewhere in the stream of commerce you can have jeopardized drugs, so that people who are inappropriately placed in the market doing that kind of business can insert a counterfeit drug. They look just the same, they're packaged just the same, and the problem is that retailers could buy those not knowing and sell them to people in the market, not knowing that these people aren't getting the drugs they need for their
business. What does your bill do?
The bill limits to three levels, three wholesale sales. It has very, very strict requirements for registration and work with the pharmacy board. I mean, there's really high standards in place. And there's also a pedigree tracking, which will be a national standard we're putting in Nevada as of 2007 through the FDA. And that's tracking, actually radio frequency tracking of the drugs to know that the integrity is protected.
You've got a large number of senior citizens in your district.
I do.
In Las Vegas. What's your opinion as a legislator here and representing that community about the controversy in the Senate right now over Canadian prescription drugs?
Actually, I'm the primary sponsor on that in the Senate. Mrs. Buckley did a phenomenal phenomenal job of putting a lot of protections in place. I actually was in front of the internet pharmacy legislation 4 years ago and 2 years ago. We have the toughest internet pharmacy law in the United States, and she worked diligently to get strong checks and balances in there, FDA standards, and she's gotten legal opinions, and I'm very supportive of what she's done.
It's stalled right now. What are its chances?
Oh boy, I can't speak for 62 other members of the legislature. That's putting me on the spot. I don't know, but I would hope that we make that available, because people already can go on the internet. This would ensure that they're going to the right sites to get drugs that are the appropriate drugs.
Do you think you have enough to convince the governor that it's a safe plan?
Well, I'm certainly willing to work with Mrs. Buckley, but looking at what checks and balances, again, the safety provision she's put in the bill, it actually provides greater protections than what's in the marketplace right now. Because people can already go on and buy drugs from wherever. Of course, according to Nevada law, we're pretty strict, but enforcing is a little tough sometimes.
When you were last on the program, fitness and obesity, which were the issues that you were discussing, you've been quite successful. Would you tell us how successful?
Yes. We now have in law a statewide program on fitness and wellness, which will also include a council on fitness and wellness. And I have been getting so many wonderful calls of support from a lot of the major chronic disease prevention organizations wanting to know, what can we do? How can we get our volunteers engaged? What kind of materials can we provide? So I said the wonderful component of this is we'll bring people to the table to talk, because this is a venue. This will get us there doing the right thing.
You've got a district that has, as I mentioned before, a lot of seniors in it, and we're talking about activities that are going on in Medicaid, Medicare. You heard Bob Beers was here talking about the increases that are there. Medicaid provides a huge number of services to people in your district. How should it change? Is it adequate? Does it do what it needs to do with your population?
Well, since I've been, this is my 5th session, I'm wrapping up. What I've been thrilled about in the 5 sessions I've served are some of the waivers that we've been able to get in place. I'm on the Aging Commission for Nevada and have been since 1997. I love doing that. In fact, we just recently had a meeting up here and I was able to attend in person. And the waiver program is one of the best ways to assist Nevadans. And one of my favorite is the CHIP program, not the children's insurance, but the CHIP program in Nevada, to help frail seniors, let them stay in their homes as long as we can. The dignity of that.
Caregivers into the homes.
And we save money, we save their dignity, we allow them to have the independence. It's so important. And it prolongs their lives, because they're not in an institution. They get to be where they're comfortable and they're healthier there. So that's one of my favorites. And of course, whatever we can do with pharmacy, I'm supportive of, because that's the heavy expense for many. I don't want to see seniors have to make a choice between which drug and which food.
And that's the choice people make every single day.
It is, and more so, not less so.
We talked about it on the show yesterday with the governor, and I got a ton of phone calls at the office from people who were just struggling to be able to pay these huge pharmacy bills.
You know, I had a bill, and it didn't get through, but I'm going to work with the governor's office in hopes that they'll still be able to do it, and with pharma, the pharmaceutical industry. And that was to put onto an existing website in the Consumer Health Assistance part of his office, something that they do in New Mexico, and it puts the most commonly sold pharmacy drugs, which the pharmacy board can provide, how much they cost, and where they're available. And it's voluntary, so there's no mandate to the retail industry. In New Mexico, because it's a competitive shopping environment on that site, voluntary, they reduce pharmacy prices up to 25 and 30%, because there are pharmacies that would go online and say, we'll match the lowest price. I don't know that would occur without a place for that information to be available, so I'm hoping we can still have that happen.
And it's a pleasure to have you here. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
For more than a decade, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has been helping the community embrace conservation as a way of life.
That includes replacing more than 50 million square feet of grass with water-smart landscaping. During the worst drought on record, watering restrictions and tough landscaping codes have reduced the community's water use by billions of gallons, even as thousands of new residents were moving into Nevada. That's smart water management, and that's our promise to Nevada.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The Resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined on our pundit panel. Bob Beers has consented to join us here on the pundit panel, along with Paul Enos, who is Manager of Government Affairs with the Retail Association of Nevada, one of our proud sponsors, and Robert Compan with Farmers Insurance Government Affairs. Pleasure to have all of you here. Let's start out, Bob, with you. Where exactly has the budget ballooned this time around?
Personnel, I think it's been more evenly distributed everywhere this time than it was 2 years ago. When we do the big increase in human resources and salaries, basically anybody with 10 years experience is going to get a 7% raise in the first year and then a 4% raise in the second year. And that goes to all aspects of our state government, including the university system.
So for the two business guys, lobbyists, how do your clients generally react to what you hear on the budget, et cetera, as the business community reps here today?
We feel, to be honest with you, being in finance or Ways and Means, I feel so uncomfortable there because it's all about spending money. We're usually in the policy committees. However, we have, since last session, we have really started to focus on the budget and see what's going on, because we know that when the budget increases, we're going to be the ones turned to pay for the taxes, or to pay for the increases. So I think it's scary, and that's why you hear a lot of people in the business community supporting Tabor, which Senator Beers is.
And I disagree with him a little bit because his clients are going to do one of three things. They're either going to raise their prices, or they're going to decrease their expenses, or they're going to go out of business. And in the case of raising prices, it's us consumers who foot the tab. In the case of decreasing expenses, the biggest one in any Nevada business is personnel. So it's the people, it's the Nevada residents who don't get as big a raise next year or don't get quite the benefit package that they had last year. And so I think that it's ultimately the taxpayers of the state suffer.
Well, businesses are also consumers, though, too, to that point.
But then the other side of the coin, in my industry, you have, we're regulated on our tax base, and in the insurance industry, we give, I think, we're the third highest source of income for the state as far as what goes into the general fund.
And the insurance premium tax?
For the insurance premium tax. So, we take a close look at that, because it's going to affect on whether we have to take rate or whatever, because if the general fund is going to be exhausted, and say through regulation they're going to have to ask for more premium tax, we're not talking, pocket change that comes out of your pocket. It's a large sum of money. So on the big scale of thing, when you look in budgetary issues, how is it going to affect us and how we do business in the state next year in the biennium, how we're going to go through that, and through regulation, are they going to ask us for more premium dollars? And essentially that's going to affect the consumer. And so, we pay pretty close attention to what's happening, maybe not as close as we should. We're just talking about, mostly policy issues is what we're concerned about. But monetarily, we have to take a look at that.
No, I agree with Mr. Compan, by the way, because he's a constituent.
That is true, Senator Beers.
Paul, does it look like the bank's going to take it in the shorts continuing through this session?
Well, I believe so. I hope not. I think that's one of the biggest disappointments this session is that the banks didn't get put on the level as everybody else, and secondly, that they didn't lower the payroll tax to be on base wage instead of gross. Last year when they passed the tax, we had Senator Dina Titus standing up saying we cannot tax people on their wages and on their raises. And that's exactly what we're doing in this state, and we need to change that. That is one of the most important issues of the business community, is fixing the payroll tax so it's on base and not gross.
But one of the things that happens in Nevada is once one of these single industry taxes hits, it's never rolled back. And that insurance premium tax, it was just...
It happened once, Scott, in 1983, the soda pop tax.
Well, you're right. In 1989, that insurance premium tax was put on, and it's never been reduced or touched. At the same time, if we don't find a way to broaden the tax base on some level so that everybody contributes, so it's small rather than hitting for the kill an industry here, an industry there, an industry there, on some level there's got to be a way to have this be spread and be a broader base.
And the scary thing is, the rest of the business community is afraid that when we get to the point where we need more tax revenue, they're going to say, okay, retailers, it's your turn. You're at 2% now. And for every chain, you're going to pay for each store that you have more than one. They'll do the same with car dealers. I mean, that's just go on down the list of businesses that you can hit. Whose turn is it in the barrel this time? It scares the hell out of us.
What if we extended the payroll tax to political consulting firms? Would that improve the city?
Am I wrong here? Do we have a surplus?
We did. We've spent it.
We spent it this year.
Yeah. The $300 million surplus that we're giving back is part of a $600 million surplus. And I think in some people's eyes here, the point of that surplus is to draw your attention away from the fact that our tax structure is not changing. We're going to continue to get that excess revenue in the next biennium, only we're going to recognize it ahead of time and plan to spend it.
And recognizing growth, obviously.
Yep.
And that's where we got to leave it. Gentlemen, fine discussion. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
High-tech companies demand perfect world amenities. They require clean, reliable power, state-of-the-art fiber optic communications, and clean water sources. In a perfect world, companies would have immediate access to rail and interstate freeways. There would be 4-lane expressways that shorten shipping times and provide convenient commute routes for valued employees. Well, the future is now, and it's here. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
My family started this business 27 years ago.
We work hard to serve our customers and our community.
But it's getting harder and harder to keep the doors open.
For example, our workers' comp is going through the roof. Isn't anyone on my side anymore?
The Retail Association of Nevada is. If you're a small business owner, we can cut your workers' comp by up to 50%, lobby for your interests, and keep you informed. Put us to work today.
South Reno's hotspot for food, fun, and friends is the Tamarack Junction. Play over 480 of the hottest slots and video poker games. Enjoy hot times and sizzling food specials at Sully's Sports Bar, Grill, and Nightclub. Watch your favorite game on one of our jumbo high-definition plasma TVs. Enjoy great food 24 hours a day in the Dining Car Restaurant. Or sample the best hot and cold sandwiches in the Whistle Stop Deli. The Tamarack Junction is your junction for fun. South Virginia and Abadi Ranch Parkway. Yeah.
Hopefully Monday will be our last show in Carson City, and then be back to the studio for the rest of the week. Who's coming up, Scott?
Well, we have a really interesting group next week. We've got, first of all, Barbara Buckley's going to come on and draw a close to the session and tell us what all she sees coming out of this. And Walt Higgins talking about your power bills, and then we're going to have 2 programs that's all pundits, the whole program. We're going to be nuts by the time we're done with those 2 shows.
It'll be the way we finish out the session. Thanks for watching Nevada Newsmakers. We'll see you